Welcome back. Disclaimer: this video is for educational purposes only. This is the Babylonian court found in Hollywood. These images that they love to throw in our faces, as the one you see here, are the fallen angels touching down, skimming the water, and then wrapping around the mountain, a very particular mountain, Mount Hermon to be exact. Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Hollywood is inundated with these images, like the entrance to Ishtar's temple. And believe me, Ishtar is not somebody you want to be worshiping. For years now, they've been throwing the worship of Moloch and 1,000 points of light and all kinds of free Masonic symbolism right in front of our faces, but that's probably just a conspiracy as well. Revelation 14:8, and another angel followed, saying, Babylon is fallen, the great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. A direct quote from George H.W. Bush, I will keep America moving forward, always forward, for a better America, for an endless enduring dream, and 1,000 points of light. This is my mission, and I will complete it. Tell us, George, what is this endless dream you speak of and this 1,000 points of Luciferian light? After all, this is show business, and they seem to flaunt this 1,000 points of light every chance they get. I wonder if Chris Rock knows. Matthew 18:6, our Messiah speaking, but whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Isn't that right, Mel? The signs are all around, but the question is, are we paying attention as we buy into the propaganda of saving our children, when really we're just funding it? Just think about it. What two better people to play on your emotions? If you're still on the Trump train, I suggest you get off of it now. Tim Ballard, a hero of sex trafficking, and Jim Caviezel, the very man who played our Messiah in The Passion. I know, Christians. Before you get your emotions all involved, just hear me out. I'm about to show you some things that might change your mind about these few men that you believe are trying to save us, even though many of us have been screaming from the rooftops for over 10 years that something needed to be done. If you've been paying attention, you would have caught Tim Ballard's tie here. That's right, a Freemasonic tie. Tell me, what is a sex trafficking hero doing wearing a Freemasonic tie? Tim Ballard's own words in an interview when asked, he said, some very good people helped to fund this movie. Paul DeJoria and Carlos Slim were large investors for the film Sound of Freedom. This is the same wonderful man, Carlos Slim, who donated $100 million to the Clinton Foundation in 2007. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. Carlos Slim's investments go very, very deep. Did you know that Carlos Slim and the Rothschilds are good buddies? Even Hunter Biden used his father's vice president perks to persuade a deal with Carlos Slim. Now, here's two of the other great men that Tim Ballard so gracefully said helped to support the funding of the Sound of Freedom: John Paul DeJoria and Paul Mitchell, the owner of the hairstyle products. Rolling Stones reports that Tim Ballard, inspired behind Sound of Freedom, quietly leaves anti-trafficking group. Tell us, Tim, why is it that you believe that the upside-down pentagram, a demonic pentagram at that, is a sign of light? This again is probably just another conspiracy theory, but tell me, believers, when are we going to stop buying into the lies and allowing them to shift from one side to the other while playing everyone that doesn't have a clue what's going on? Matthew 8:14, Even so, it is not the will of your Father in heaven that one of these little ones should be lost. Deuteronomy 32:35, Vengeance is mine, and recompense their foot shall slip in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things to come hasten upon them. Tell me, brothers and sisters, are we going to let these types of things slide by unnoticed, turning a blind eye to what's going on right in front of our faces? 1 John 4:1-3, Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits whether they are of Yahweh, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of Yahweh. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua has come in the flesh is of Yahweh, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua has come in the flesh is not of Yahweh. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world. Jim Caviezel, a devout Roman Catholic, and these are the men he associates with. Caviezel is a devout Catholic. In 2017 interview, Caviezel talked about the importance of the Catholic faith, lasting impact in the Passion of the Christ has had on his life, and the special devotion to the Virgin Mary. Tell me, Jim, if you know our Messiah's name is Yeshua, why do you call him Jesus? Jeremiah 14:14, And Yahweh said to me, The prophets prophesy lies in my name. I have not sent them, commanded them, nor spoken to them. They prophesy you false visions, divination, a worthless thing, and the deceit of their heart. Don't think for 1 second that it's a coincidence that these mighty merchants of the earth have to run everything by the Pope before any decisions can be made. It's a big club, and you're not in it. 2 Timothy 4:3-4, For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth, and be turned aside to fables. This is Jim Caviezel, inviting you to join the Hallowed app. We'll take a look at that more in just a minute. First, I want you to pay close attention to the necklace that Mr. Caviezel's wearing. Everything, and I mean everything, is done in plain sight with these people. No secrets, it's all in the open, so you can't say you didn't know. That's right, Jim Caviezel, Carlos Slim, and all the other people that helped put this movie together are all part of the Knights Templar. That's right, the Mennonite Knights Templar, located right in the area where all of these children are supposedly being trafficked. Hopefully by the end of this documentary you'll see that all of the same people, Aleister Crowley, even Albert Pike, are all part of this club. Go ahead. Tell Yahweh his watchers are conspiracy theorists, and that we're reaching, and that we're looking too deep into this. Show me one celebrity that you like, and I'll show you 15 or more pictures proving to you that they're all involved in the same thing. They only care about one thing, and that's power. But my question is to you, church, when are we going to stop allowing these people to play us? 2 John 6-8, Now this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. This is the commandment, just as you heard from the beginning, that you walk in love. For many deceivers have gone into the world, those who do not acknowledge Yeshua as Messiah coming in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an anti-Messiah. Watch yourselves so that you do not lose what you have worked for, but receive a full reward. Angel Studios, the creators of The Chosen and Sound of Freedom. The Harmon brothers are the founders of Angel Studios and the creators of The Chosen, Sound of Freedom. They are also known as an advertising company called the Harmon Brothers. Here is one of their ads, which the devil teaching their class not to see The Chosen. Sorry, I'm not big on the humor, especially with a company that calls themselves Angel Studios. You know, the ones who produced the movie Sound of Freedom. Now, back to the hallowed app that Jim Caviezel was promoting earlier. This is Jonathan Rumi, the man who played the Messiah and the Chosen. Tell me, do they choose these people just because they play our Messiah to gain our trust so that we believe the lies that they tell us? This is a video online that you can find of Jonathan Rumi admitting that he used to be a Knights Templar. But once you get involved with these little clubs here, it's a well-known fact that you don't just get out. Jeremiah 23:26 through 27. Till when shall it be in the heart of the prophets of falsehood and the prophets of deceit of their own heart, who try to make my people forget my name by their dreams, which everyone relates to his neighbor, as their fathers forget my name for Baal. Jim Caviezel uses the name Yeshua all throughout the movie The Passion, yet he still calls our Messiah Jesus anytime he's in front of another camera. Is he trying to make us forget our Messiah's name? Or better yet, why is he calling our Messiah God in the flesh? Better yet, Jim, why do you worship Mary instead of our Father in heaven? Well, look at this, Jonathan Rumi with the Pope. Is it just me, or does anybody else notice that Jonathan Rumi's trying to show off his flashy skull ring here? Just like all the Hollywood elites do. Are people not understanding that these men are pledging allegiance to Satan? 2 Corinthians 11:13 through 15. For such men are false emissaries, deceitful workers, masquerading as Messiah's emissaries, and no wonder, for even Satan masquerades as an angel of light. It is no great thing, therefore, if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness. Their end will be according to their deeds. But Adrian, it's just a skull ring. No, it's much more than that. It's an allegiance to Satan. Why is it that we keep seeing these same men posing with the same ring? I guess it's just a conspiracy. Now pay close attention to the hand symbolism, as we're going to see much more of that later on in the documentary. Jonathan Rumi prayed with the deceased, gay Lonnie Frisbee and asked him for a sign. When they say to you, consult the mediums and the spirits who whisper and mutter, should people not consult with their God? Are you kidding me? Yes, you heard that right. The Jesus actor consulted a dead gay man for advice. Ecclesiastes 9:5. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Jonathan Rumi explains, so before I started work, I went over to Christ Cathedral and I sat at his grave and I prayed a rosary with him. In fact, I sat down and I prayed with him. The space just to his right is empty, so I got to sit down, and at a point I even lied down because I thought it would be kind of interesting to try to connect in some way. Folks, if you don't believe this is an attack on your faith and on your kids, just take a look at this. The Masonic Lodge is now offering free microchipping for your children so that they'll never be lost again. I'm sorry, but you people have lost your minds if you think you're putting anything into our children, especially coming from the Masonic Lodge. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this has never been about protecting your children, but tracking their whereabouts and knowing where they are at all times. Freemasonry, Masonic skull ring meaning, from brotherhood to beyond. Does it intrigue the design of Masonic skull ring have you curious about its meaning? No, not really, but you can pause to read if you're interested. How many of you remember the controversy on the set of The Chosen where a gay pride flag was being flown and the director said that he just didn't have time to address everybody's skepticism about the pride flag being flown as he was too busy producing The Chosen? Hey, that makes two of us, Chief. That's exactly why I didn't watch this garbage to begin with. 2 Peter 2:1 through 3. But there were also false prophets among the people, even as there will be false teachers among you. who will secretly bring in destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, and bring on themselves swift destruction. And many will follow their destructive ways, because of who the way of truth will be blasphemed. By covetousness they will exploit you with their deceptive words. For a long time their judgment has not been idle, and their destruction does not slumber. These people have been coming after our kids all the way back since the days of Moloch and child worship. It's nothing new, but it's something that needs to be stopped, and stopped soon. Ezekiel 8:14 through 15. So he brought me to the door of the north gate of Yahweh's house, and to my dismay women were sitting and weeping for Tammuz. Then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? Turn again and you will see even greater abominations than these. Are you starting to notice a pattern here, folks? Jeremiah 6:11 through 12. Then you shall say to them, because your fathers have forsaken me, says Yahweh, they have walked after other gods and have served them and worshipped them, and have forsaken me and not kept my law. And you have done worse than your fathers, for behold, each one follows the dictates of his own evil heart, so that no one listens to me. We've opened the door for Satan, for American Idol. Aren't we told not to have idols before Yahweh? These people base their whole career around winning a trophy or getting a star in Hollywood. Do you know what these stars represent? The fallen. What about the Oscars or the Grammys? We'll get to that in just a minute. Revelation 9:20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by the plagues, yet repented not of their works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols and gold and silver and brass and stone and wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. Don't think for 1 second these Hollywood actors don't know who they're worshiping every time they receive one of these awards. They're very well rooted. And how about this cute little statue at the Grammys? You don't think these people realize that they're worshiping Moloch? That they're sacrificing children to Moloch, just as they did thousands of years ago? As King Solomon said, there is nothing new under the sun. Galatians 5:19 through 21. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murderers, drunkenness, revilings, and such the like. Of this which I tell you before, as I told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Yahweh. This is who they worship, Satan himself, offering up our children as a sacrifice. Jeremiah 7:31. They have built their high places in Topheth in the valley of Ben-Hinnom, to burn their sons and daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did it even enter my mind. Many will hear on that day, depart from me, you who work lawlessness. I never knew you. 1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some covet after they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. For all of you attacking our children, you better get to tying that millstone around your neck, because as the prince and the power of the air may have enriched you on this earth, in the earth to come, you will be nothing but a vapor. Have you ever wondered what it would look like to see Satan in the flesh? Well, look no further and take a look at some of his closest friends. 2 Timothy 3:1 through 5. This know, all that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that do good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of Yahweh, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. For such turn away. When I say everything around us is a lie, I mean just that. We have been taught from grade school lie after lie, and we've been attacked by Satan ever since. But those who walk in truth can walk knowing that they serve a higher power who is untouchable. Revelation 1:7-8. Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye shall see him, even those which pierced him, and all tribes of the earth shall mourn because of him. Yes, amen. I am the Alpha and the Omega, says Adonai Elohim, who is, and who was, and who is to come, the Almighty. Tell me, how will every eye see our Messiah returning with the nations on a globe earth? Meet General Admiral Byrd, who flew to the Arctic and found a luscious green landscape of endless resources, whose career was shortly lived afterwards, once airing this on television and sharing it with the general public. Genesis 1:16-17. Then Yahweh made the two great lights, the greater light for dominion over the day and the lesser light, as well as the stars for dominion over the night. Yahweh set them in the expanse of the sky to shine on the land. Did you catch that, Christians? Yahweh said he placed the sun, the moon, and the stars inside of the firmament. Tell me, have you ever stopped to wonder why you can see the sun and the moon in the same sky, yet we were taught that if the sun is on one side of the earth, that the moon must be on the other? Isn't that how Yahweh created it? Yet we would much rather believe that we're on a globe spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. Joshua 10:13. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance on its enemies. Is it not written in the book of Jasher? Thus the sun halted in the middle of the sky and did not hurry to go down for about a full day. Tell me, believers, how does this make any sense? How does the moon stop? How is the sun halted? How is the earth not spinning at 1,000 miles per hour and the tides not going all over the place? Proverbs 34. Who has gone up into the heaven and come down? Who has gathered the wind in the palm of his hand? Who has wrapped the waters in a cloak? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is his son's name, if you know? I know, Christians, you're gonna say, don't tell me the earth has 4 corners. I don't need to. I just proved your whole theory wrong with the book of Joshua. Genesis 1:6-8. Then Yahweh said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the water. Let it be for separating the water from the water. So Yahweh made the expanse, and it separated the water that was below the expanse from the water that was above the expanse, and so it happened. Yahweh called the expanse sky. So there was evening, and there was morning, and a second day. I know it's hard to break free from a lie, but once you do, oftentimes you'll start to find the real truths in Scripture in ways that you never imagined before. But before you can do that, you have to be able to believe the things that Yahweh put in His book for us to read and understand. And if you can't believe what He said about His own earth, how will you possibly believe the rest of the Scriptures, the prophets, the Psalms, the Messiah, all of it? It is a proven fact that the firmament is moving, not the earth. But hey, if we do a really good job at believing the lie, we just might have a good chance at cleaner air, drinking water, and we could even reduce the population. These are our leaders, people. These are the ones that are telling you the science and all of the numbers. Do you believe them? They keep telling us that population control is a conspiracy theory, yet John D. Rockefeller talks about it all the time. And let's not forget about Mr. Bill Gates here, continually talking about population control. But yet, every time we bring it up, he says we're taking it out of context. Oopsie, Bill Gates says we quoted vaccines and population growth has been taken out of context once again. This looks like an excellent book. By the way, have you seen the books on his desk that he suggests that are great reads? You should take a look at those sometime. Did anybody get a chance to read these before they were destroyed? Or do you know why they were destroyed? Because they're the only monument that showed that the Polaris star never moves. Isaiah 14:12 through 14. How have you fallen from heaven, O bright star, son of the dawn? How are you cut down to the earth, you who made the nations prostrate? You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yahweh. I will sit upon the mount of the meeting in the uttermost parts of the north. I will ascend above the high places of the clouds, and I will make myself like Elion. Because of our advances in technology, we're starting to find out that even what NASA told us about the stars is a lie. They've admitted with their own words that the pictures of the earth and the stars are all generated animated pictures. Job 38:6 through 8. On what, where its foundations set, or who laid the cornerstone thereof, when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of Yahweh shouted for joy? And who shut up the sea behind doors, when it burst forth from the womb? Did you catch that? Even the angels are referred to as stars. For those who have eyes to see, you can clearly see these are not balls of gas, but instead beings of light. Do you want to know why they keep showing us pictures like this, telling us that this is the dark side of the moon? Because they know people will eat it up. They're counting on the American public and all the nations on the entire planet to believe the lies that we've been told. This is Freemason Nicholas Copernicus, who took the geocentric flat Earth model and turned it into the heliocentric model, making humans believe that Yahweh is millions of light years away and that we are some insignificant speck of dust in the middle of nowhere. I don't care what lies you were told in a public school. I'm telling you right now that the sun is local, just as our Creator said. He placed the sun and the moon inside of the firmament, not millions of miles away. The earth is Yahweh's footstool. Have you ever stopped to wonder why they call it the Arctic Circle? This is a closer representation of what the earth actually looks like. This is the Antarctic Treaty, which forbids citizens to fly over the Arctic. And just about every nation on earth has signed this treaty for good reason. There's stuff going on there that they don't want the general public to know about. Enoch speaks of the chambers that the sun and the moon rotate through in order for us to have the seasons that we do here on the earth. Every time someone mentions the ice wall, they're automatically deemed a conspiracy theorist, but yet we have tons of pictures of it. Proverbs 8:28 through 29. When he established the skies above, when he securely fixed the fountains of the deep, when he set the boundaries of the sea, so that the waters never transgressed his command, when he laid out the earth's foundations. Our Messiah was a witness to these foundations and to these boundaries of the sea. I wouldn't dare to call him a liar. One day soon, our Father in heaven will reveal all of the secrets that were hidden from us from the wicked merchants of this earth. But until then, we're going to have to trust in the scriptures that were left to us and believe and walk by faith and not by sight. There are plenty of visual proofs, but we just choose to deny them. I will believe my Father's word. Revelation 4:6, and before the throne was something like a sea of glass, like crystal. That sea of glass is speaking of our Creator's firmament. Raka, properly an expanse, the firmament, or apparently visible arc in the sky. Every belief on earth knows there's a firmament, but NASA says there's not. Yahweh said he placed his bow in the cloud as a covenant between him and the land, and that I believe. There's only one creator that I know that can bend light. Please explain to me how this is possible if there's no firmament placed above us, as Scripture says. Genesis 9:16. When the rainbow is in the cloud, I will look at it and remember the perpetual covenant between Yahweh and every living creature of all flesh that is on the land. NASA has done a great job hiding the name of Satan in their logo, not to mention that it means the deceiver. Now, I've heard the weak argument that NASA H535 does not mean to deceive, but this is simply for those who don't know how to use a Strong's Concordance. When used properly from the root word H5377, NASA, which means to beguile or to deceive. NASA has been deceiving people for a long time out of hundreds of billions of tax-paying dollars. Tell me something, Globers. Why is it that rockets always shoot up in an arch and go straight back down into the Bermuda Triangle where they disappear? Or better yet, why is it that when a rocket is shot directly at it, it skims across the firmament and leaves ripple marks in the same way that a boat leaves marks through the ocean? Very, very similar in nature and too much to be a coincidence. Rocket bouncing off the firmament, ocean, and a boat. Same exact principle. Why is it that the largest bridges in the world, the longest bridges in the world, have no account for any type of curvature whatsoever in them? Yet your math says that there should be 8 inches per squared mile. Here's another phenomenon that science tries to explain away and has no answers for, but my Bible does. This is the throne of the Most High, but many will never know because they're too afraid of the Book of Enoch. Seems to me that NASA has their dirty little fingers involved in everything, but don't worry, my Father in heaven is right there watching. Science wants to blame it on climate control, but who's really controlling the weather? Who's allowing man to play God for now? Some of you are going to keep trusting in science and places like CERN until they open up the bottomless pit and let in entities that you're not going to be able to deal with, and then who are you going to call on? Genesis 7:11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on this day all the water sources of the great deep burst open and the windows of the sky were opened. But Adrian, there's no proof of that. And what would have held the water in? It's called an ice wall, and there's plenty of proof. They're called geysers, but you guys want to call them meteorites when you have no proof of any type of moon rock or anything from space hitting these. And it's funny how they have the indentions on the outer corners that push up, just like a geyser. There are hundreds of thousands of these all over the Earth's surface and under the ocean. I'm hoping that it's starting to make sense to some of you. Again, it's the reason why they call it the Arctic Circle. Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were in the earth in those days and afterwards, when the Ben Elohim, or the sons of God, came to the daughters of men and gave birth to them. Those were the mighty men of old, men of renown, or everlasting. Once again, my father's book proves what took place, and there are plenty of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and artifacts that prove that there were giants in those days, but you won't use that science because it doesn't suit you. And as we get further along, my father's book is going to explain everything that's currently happening in the world right now that your scientists can't figure out. 1 Chronicles 11:23. And he slew an Egyptian, a man great in stature, 5 cubits high, and in the Egyptian's hand was a spear like a weaver's beam. And he went down to him with a staff, and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand, and slew him with his own spear. Even the way that the pyramids were built has been explained through ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, history, and our Bible. You see, there were giants in those days and after, and Joseph had to prepare for a 7-year famine, and he had to have a place to store food to keep the bugs away from it. This is something that scientists don't think about because they don't believe in Scripture. You see, the proof is all around you. You just have to open your eyes and believe. It's not difficult. If there were no giants, did history just make all this up as a big hoax? What do you suppose these giants were carrying? And no, I'm not saying that they didn't have technology back then, but I am saying that normal people don't have giraffes as pets. These people were clearly worshiping entities much larger than themselves. So what do you think that they were? Daniel 12:4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. If you haven't noticed what's going on in the world, you will before this video is over. And if you still deny my Father in heaven, by that point, there's no hope for you. I would venture to say that it's safe to assume that we've all seen these in the sky. But does anyone actually know what's going on here? Well, let me explain. This is what they call HARP, and it is one of many locations throughout the world where they manipulate the ionosphere. Remember those clouds that we were looking at before? Well, once those chemicals are dispersed in the air, they are spread out by HARP using the ionosphere, then covering the entire sky and blotting out the sun and calling it climate change. In case you haven't noticed, we've had severe weather everywhere. Severe flooding, severe tornadoes, severe earthquakes, severe thunderstorms, all kinds of natural disasters, all thanks to NASA and HARP. Yahweh is clearly not happy at what man is doing, trying to play God. Deuteronomy 31:17. Then my anger will flare against them on that day, and I will abandon them and hide my face from them, so they will be devoured, and many evils and troubles will come on them. And they will say in that day, isn't it because of our Elohim is not among us that these evils have come upon us? All of these things that we are witnessing happening were prophesied to happen thousands of years ago, yet men will continue to deny the power and might of Yahweh Almighty. And those who take part in working with the adversary will fall with him. Tornado damages Pfizer plant in North Carolina will likely lead to long-term shortage of medicines. I call that reaping what you sow. This was a government operation called Operation Fishbowl, where they took a nuclear warhead, shot it straight up to the firmament, and guess what? Another Nimrod tried this and failed miserably. Many people are still not paying attention. They're still asleep. They don't realize that we're being attacked from within. Our water supply, our food supplies, everything that these government officials can take from us, they're taking. They're taxing us more. They're making us work harder, to the point where we don't even get to see our families, to work, and to work for what? What do we take home? What do we have to show for it? Absolutely nothing. I hate to say it, but I will only speak the truth. This is what happens when we turn our backs on our only Elohim, Yahweh. When we start to serve evil and we become lovers of self, people are doing exactly what Scripture says. They're eating and drinking and marrying, just like in the days of Noah, until the floods came. These events from evil men and natural disasters are only going to increase as Yahweh's anger increases. This is known as dew, or a direct energy weapon. Look at the hood of this car. Do you believe that was caused by a brush fire? These weapons have existed for a long time. Look at these California wildfires that took place a few years back. Green trees standing while entire houses are incinerated to the ground. These direct energy weapons have been caught on camera, and many people have reported them, while the news tells you it's no big deal and people just carry on about their business without a care in the world. Complete calipers, steel and metal parts melted on the ground. This doesn't happen by chance, people. These are weapons being used against us. When the pandemic and lockdowns first started, millions of Americans were forced to close the doors to their businesses while others were forced to stay inside their homes. While big corporations like this one were sending up thousands and thousands of satellites, and all in the name of faster internet speeds. Tell me, has your internet speeds improved that much since 5G has been initiated? I know everybody remembers these images because 99% of us were on lockdown in our homes watching it on the news. Strange humming sounds and trumpet noises have been being reported for years now. There's been several reports of the night sky lighting up like it's daytime. Not only that, but the sky is changing different colors. I shouldn't have to spell it out for anyone at this point. I think you can put things together. Satellites going up in the sky, images appearing in the clouds, UFOs being reported. None of these are natural occurrences. These are man-made occurrences, and they're happening for a reason. This strange cloud appeared over Turkey right before they had their massive earthquake hit. Let me put this very plainly. Hologram technology. It's becoming crazier and crazier by the day, and it will be used in the sky sometime very soon. If you haven't already noticed, AI is taking over everything, from jobs to driving to human thinking. Sadly, many are excited about this new technology, but you won't be when it takes your job, or it keeps you from participating in society if you choose to opt out of certain things that the government insists that you do or have. Just take a look at the advancement in technology. This is a real building that can change into multiple different things, not to mention the technology used at concerts now. You want to sit down face to face and talk with a friend as if they're sitting right in the room with you? Well, that technology's here as well. And now, your God-given brain is no longer good enough. They want to add interfaces to it, to make superhumans, to make people smarter and faster and more efficient, so you can do more and work harder. This is Elon Musk's Neuralink chip that can go into your brain. I remember Yahweh saying he created us in his image, but there's somebody else that wants to recreate you in his image as well. The attack on adults is bad enough, but when is enough enough when it comes to our kids? Teaching young kids whose brains are not even developed to worship Satan? Question, would you allow your child to watch this? Where Satan impregnates a woman and has a daughter called the little demon? When is enough enough, people? It's time we as the parents start screening everything that our children watch. And I'm getting to the point where I'm ready to break my TV into pieces and get rid of it altogether, because I'm tired of them inundating us with lies and filth. Here's a conspiracy for those of you that use an epinephrine pen. Go ahead and take a guess as to what the main ingredients are. I'm just going to read a small part of this. Adrenochrome and brown from the formation of melanin. Yes, you heard that right. Go ahead, take the time and read it for yourself. Now this I don't have to spell out for you, because a lot of the stuff that's coming out of this place is pure evil. How many of you have watched this cartoon where they harvest the fear of little kids' dreams and they put it in nice little capsules? What do you think that represents? Now, we already know what our government officials think about us because they've openly said it, that the American people are incapable of making informed decisions for themselves because we're too stupid. Lie after lie after lie. My Michael and my Michelle and Genesis 6:5, Then Adonai saw the wickedness of humankind was great on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their heart were only evil all the time. It's okay, Barack. Michael already told us what was going on. Isn't that what this whole administration is about? Men have replaced good for evil and evil for good, and those that do wrong are rewarded openly, right in front of our faces. And we all know, each and every one of these characters, who they are and what they've done and what they continue to do. And yet nobody bats an eyelid. The world is a stage, and all of this is being done so that you'll be just longing for the man that was in office prior to come back, swoop down and save everyone. But I got news for you. They're all playing on the same team. None of them care for your well-being. The only thing these people care about is money and power. You know why all of this is happening? Because the majority is scared of the minority. And look what we're watching happening in the White House. Proverbs 16:18, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. I told you earlier that my Father's book can explain everything that has happened and will happen. And what I'm about to share with you next might just blow your mind. This is where it all started. Nimrod, the man who built the Tower of Babel and became a mighty man before the eyes of Yahweh. And this is his mother and wife, Ashtartes, or Ashtaroth, or Ishtar, the goddess of sex, love, and fertility, and festivals. Judges 2:13, they forsook Yahweh and served Baal and the Ashtaroths. It was said in the ancient manuscripts that Ashtaroth or Ishtar was raped, and she turned into a rainbow, representing pride. The Queen of Heaven takes our Father's covenant, the rainbow, and turns it into pride. In the ancient text, Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven, says this, I am a woman and I am a man. She could be seen as a beautiful goddess of love who rules the day, and a bearded goddess of war who rules the night. It was said that Ishtar was both man and woman. Ishtar would make her bondservants and bondmen, the bondmen to dress up as bondswomen, and the bondswomen to dress up as bondsmen, hanging nude photos all over the place in her temple, all while taking authority from the man and giving it to the woman. The empowerment of women and the downfall of men, this was Ishtar's entire plan as the goddess of heaven, or the Queen of Heaven. Thousands of years later, her spirit still lives on. The Stonewall riots begin in June of 1969. June was the month of Ashtaroth. It was their celebration month. Month of September, they would have orgies, and when December would roll around, they would sacrifice the children that were conceived in September to the god Moloch or Baal. The 1969 riots and the Supreme Court ruling led to what we now know as Pride Month, the month of June. This is also where the Trinity doctrine came from. We have Ishtar, Nimrod, and their son Tammuz making up the unholy dark trinity. We have the pentagram, we have Ishtar, we have Nimrod, we have Tammuz, and we even have the globe Earth. This was never truly about women's rights. It was always about the spirit of Ishtar and evil having its way, just as prophecy said it would. Aphrodite, Ishtar, whatever you want to call her, is also known for the downfall of many marriages. Why, you ask? Because of the Greek word porne, or where we get our word for pornography. Men and women were not created equal, not physically or spiritually. Ishtar, the prostitute, was nothing near a queen. It was Ishtar's purpose to make the little girls to become boys and the little boys to become girls. And the people that would attend these orgy parties could not tell the difference between the two sexes. They danced naked through the streets, behaving like Satan, and showing off their bodies in the middle of the summer heat. To this day, children are still being offered up to Moloch, just in a different way, but there are those that are fighting back. Jeremiah 44:25. This is what Yahweh Almighty, the Elohim of Israel, says. You and your wives have done what you said you would do and promised. We will certainly carry out the vows we made to burn incense and pour out drink offerings to the Queen of Heaven. Go ahead then, do what you promised, keep your vows. This is where the pagan practices of Easter come from, and this is why believers are not to celebrate pagan holidays and feasts. Romans 1:18-23. For the wrath of Yahweh is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. In unrighteousness they suppress truth, because what can be known about Yahweh is plain to them, for Yahweh has shown it to them. His invisible attributes, his eternal power, and his divine nature have been clearly seen ever since the creation of the world, being understood through the things that they have been made. So people are without excuse, for even though they knew Yahweh, they did not glorify him as Yahweh or give him thanks. Instead, their thinking became futile, and their senseless hearts were made dark. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. They exchanged the glory of the immortal Elohim for an image of the form of a mortal man and birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. The path is clear that leads to pride, which is destruction. If you choose to follow in the paths of the Queen of Heaven and her practices, you will be led astray by not only Satan, but his demons as well, as they masquerade as angels of light. Romans 1:24-27. Therefore Yahweh gave them over to their evil desires and their hearts to impurity. To dishonor their bodies with one another, they traded the truth of Yahweh for a lie and worshipped and served the creation rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason Yahweh gave them up to shameful passions. Even their women exchanged natural relations for what is against nature. Likewise, the men abandoned their natural relations with women and were burning with passion towards one another, men committing shameful acts with one another, and receiving in themselves the due penalty in their error. And just as they did not see fit to recognize Yahweh, Yahweh gave them over to a depraved mind to do what is not fitting. They became filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents. They are foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they knew Yahweh's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve death, they not only do them, but also approve of others who practice the same. This is clearly not just about one's sexuality, but it has now become a battle for our children's souls. When we failed to take a stand and fight to keep Yahweh in our schools, they replaced Yahweh with their own story time. Genesis 6:5. And Yahweh saw the great wickedness of the human race and how it had become on the earth, and every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. We've gotten to the point where if you correct your child, CPS shows up at your door, but it's acceptable for child abuse like this to take place in a public school where some parents don't agree with it. I don't care who likes what I'm about to say. Grown men dressed up talking about their coming for our children, I take that as a threat. And if I ever see something like this near my child, you better believe the fear of Yahweh will be in you. 2 Peter 3:3-4. First of all, understand that in the last days scoffers will come scoffing, following after their own desires, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? Ever since the fathers died, everything goes on just as it has from the beginning of the creation. Just like the parades of Ishtar, we have grown men prancing around in front of little children. This is completely unacceptable and should be considered child abuse. Here's how lawless these parades have come. Any other month or day of the year, if you were to go out and expose yourself or run down the street naked, you would go to jail for indecent exposure. But not during Pride Month. Just as the scripture says, these people have been turned over to their own lustful desires, and their hearts have been hardened. And anyone who harms one of these little ones, it is better that a millstone be tied around their neck and for them to be thrown in the depths of the ocean. Sadly, this is what Christianity teaches today. Christianity teaches that you don't have to keep God's laws, commandments, or statutes, and that you can live however you want, and that Yahweh will accept you into the kingdom. This couldn't be further from the truth, one of the biggest lies that the church is pushing today. This is the exact reason why Yahweh says, "Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her plagues." The Christian church today is no better than the satanic cult. Yes, even Satan can rent out billboards and put fancy slogans on it, but no matter what you put on them, it doesn't make it the truth. And the sad part is pastors are falling into this lie as well. 1 Samuel 8:11, he said, "This is the king who will reign over you. He will claim as his right. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots." Israel had Yahweh leading over them, but they wanted men to rule over them, so that's exactly what he gave them. They're all our children. Biden emboldens teachers amid debate about parental rights. No, Biden. My children are my children, and your children are a mess. And this is the reason why my child will never attend a public school a day in his life. As we begin to go through these photos, we're going to finish up this documentary and we're going to start piecing together everything that's happening and why these crazy laws are being passed and the reason why all of these people, these government officials, the active president is getting away with stuff like this. None of these children look comfortable, and I don't know why any parent in their right mind would allow this man near their children. Because lawlessness will abound, the love of many shall grow cold. If you live in California, get out now. Your state and government officials have literally blocked a bill protecting minors from sex trafficking. It's clear the government officials in California want these creeps out on the street. Have you ever stopped to wonder why we have one day of independence, yet Pride gets an entire month? I can tell you why, because this is becoming an epidemic of its own, and it's out of control. It has nothing to do with someone's sexuality. They want to push it in every front of life, and we have to face this head on, and if we don't, our children are at risk. As I mentioned before, there is no left or right. There's only Yahweh. And if you're not following him, then you're going down the path of destruction by siding with either side. This has nothing to do with health risks and everything to do with perversion. And our president encourages it. 1 Thessalonians 4:3-5. For this is the will of Yahweh, your sanctification, to abstain from sexual immorality, to know, each of you, how to gain control over his own body in holiness and honor, not in the passion of lust like the pagans who do not know Yahweh. When you have leadership that condones the abuse of children, that's exactly what you're going to get, a lawless society. We currently have several pandemics in America and nationwide, and more to come according to Bill Gates and our government leaders and officials. Isaiah 11:14, but they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines towards the west, and shall spoil them in the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. For those of you that are still holding on to hope that this is your Savior and that he's going to swoop in and save you, let's not forget who birthed the vaccine in 9 months. None other than Mr. Trump himself, the father of the vaccine. The government's favorite slogan, "We're all in this together." The level of deception runs deep. Of course, Trump had to catch COVID in order to sell his vaccine. You'd better believe they have the perfect salesman waiting and ready. Tell me how this man became the leading authority on vaccines. 1 John 2:18. Children, it is the last hour. Just as you heard, the anti-Messiah is coming. Even now, many anti-Messiahs have come. By this we know it is the last hour. Thankfully, many are starting to catch on, but sadly, not catching on to the Most High's words. Our government bribed people into getting this injection before even knowing if it was safe or not. Matthew 24:4, Yeshua answered them and said, "Be careful that no one leads you astray." Satan is very cunning, and these people have a way of communicating. Remember in the beginning of the documentary I told you to watch for hand signs. These are gestures that are pledging allegiance to the puppet masters that are pulling the strings, and to Satan himself. I keep hearing people try to justify this hand gesture that's made by all of the elites. Do yourself a favor and search the elites and how they posture themselves and the way that they hold their hands. This is a well-known Masonic symbol. Trump claimed that he was once part of the club, but if you've done any research on the Church of Satan and the Masonic homes, you'll know that you can't get out of this club once you join. We've all seen these signs and symbols, but do you know what they mean and how they use them? This is Trump's family crest with a double-headed phoenix. Don't believe me? Look on the wall behind him. This is Trump's Masonic arch at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Pay very close attention to the mirrored image of the double phoenix at the top, the Masonic archway, the 4 pillars. Do you have the image in your mind? The stairs, the pillars, the double-headed phoenix? What do you see here? Can you see it? The archways, the 4 pillars, the all-seeing eye. It's all the same. Now, pay close attention to the head of Baphomet. You have the star in the center with the 2 horns going upwards and the V-shaped of the head. Now here's Trump's own personal design. The shuttle, the head of Baphomet, the 2 horns, and the star in the middle. Now, where does the double-headed phoenix come from? Well, that's found in Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. How about the double-headed phoenix here? Or here? This was put up at a conference and supposedly an accident, and the man responsible for it fired. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but every president that's ever taken office has been a Freemason. Here's another angle of the archway at Mar-a-Lago. It's no coincidence that the media posts all these different people up to try to distract us and get our attention, to make it look like they're the good guys fighting for our freedom. Nothing is a coincidence when it comes to these mighty merchants of the earth. But all of these government officials are hypocrites. Do as I say, but not as I do. But when it's time to answer questions, they don't have any time. But hey, we want to take your weapons away, but we'll give you a free one if you take our shot. Hypocritical puppets, as if we care about your opinions and what you think. Of course Satan will throw $1.5 million at you. What does he have to lose? The real question is, what do you have to lose? The most sickening part is they go after our children with comic books, PlayStations, and above all, without their parents' consent. Teens need their right to get vaccinated. Really, do teens also have the right to drink alcohol, take drugs, drive underage? I don't think so. The part about all of this is it's been mapped out by Klaus Schwab from beginning to end, all of their plans in all of his books. The media flooded our TVs with doctors that were exhausted, lines to get the COVID vaccine that were completely empty, lie after lie after lie, while they forced doctors to make a choice to either get vaccinated or lose their entire career. But they got exactly what they wanted, didn't they? A bunch of compliant doctors, police, first responders, military. Who's left? Remember all of these people that told you that you were the problem because you didn't want to comply with their tyranny. And remember how they treated you when you wanted to see your loved ones in nursing homes, through plastic bags and glass windows. These people played on your emotions when the experts couldn't even agree if masks were effective or not. Who knows what they were spraying all over our city streets? Taking a look at the state of things now, the air quality, the random fires, the water pollution. We need to think long and hard about everything that's been going on. And promise you one thing, we're not far off from being just like China. Being under lock and key, having a social credit score, universal basic income, our every move being watched by cameras. Joel 2:6-9. Before them, people are in anguish, all faces are ashen gray. They run like mighty men, they climb the wall like men of war. They each march in a line, never deviating from their ways. One does not crowd another, each one marches in his own highway. They plunge through the weapons and never break off. They rush on the city and run on the wall. They climb into the houses, coming through the windows like a thief. Have you ever stopped to think in the midst of all of this why they were talking about reparations and things that had nothing to do with the generations that are currently alive? Everything you've experienced in your life, all the way up to this point, is prophecy being fulfilled. All of these groups all work for Satan, and there is no doubt about it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Symbolism is everything, and everything is a lie unless it's Yahweh's word. Because Satan is so prideful, he loves to show his hand. He likes to let everybody know what he's doing, and he knows a big majority of people have no clue what's happening right in front of their faces. The Christian owner of Chick-fil-A who closes on Sunday, sun god worship, thought it would be a good idea to bend down and clean rapper Lecrae's shoes. You're going to see a lot of this. Did you know that both of these men were also Freemasons? Which sparked an entire outrage. But again, all of these things were prophesied to happen, and everything that we witnessed is only going to happen again, only 10 times worse, before tribulation begins. They wanted to defund the police, and now nobody wants to do the policing, which means we're going to live in a lawless place. And without law, there's no order. And without order, everyone that's complaining is going to wish that they never would have started any of this at all. LAPD to stop responding to these 911 calls under new proposal. Non-criminal and non-violent homeless and quality of life related calls, non-criminal mental health crisis, non-violent juvenile disturbances, call to schools unless school administrator initiates call for an emergency, public health order violations, non-violent calls, under influence calls, welfare check calls, non-fatal vehicle accidents, parking violations, driveway tow, abandoned vehicles, person dumping trash, vicious and dangerous dog complaints, calls for service of loud noise, landlord and tenant disputes, loitering and trespassing, Code 30 alarm responses, syringe disposal, DOT standby, homeless encampment cleanups, panhandling, illegal vending, and illegal gambling. The state of recruitment, a crisis for law enforcement. Things have become so lawless, people, that no cops want to do their jobs anymore. They can't even hire state troopers, one of the highest sought-after positions in law enforcement. Daniel 2:43, and just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will mixture and will not remain united any more than the iron mixes with the clay. Folks, it is not a coincidence that all of these Democratic-run states were all the states that received the most destruction. These cities were destroyed from inside out and are only getting worse because the governors and elected officials are doing nothing to protect the very people that protect them. Are you paying attention, Israel? Because everything we saw during the George Floyd riots, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Matthew 24:9, then you will be handed over and persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name's sake. They're using every trick in the book. A 19-year-old supposed neo-Nazi, which doesn't look anything like a Nazi to me, but they conveniently placed the flag out for the media to take pictures of. Not forget about all the rocks and bricks strategically placed all throughout the cities by a certain person by the name of George Soros, who actively denies these claims. All the videos and stories that were posted by people showing these blocks mysteriously appearing where they live were all conveniently scrubbed and taken down by the media. The fake globe, the world, is a stage, and all of our government officials, all their pictures are staged as well. Everything has its purpose. What do you suppose is going to happen when the government starts pulling the rest of the strings that they've been setting up since all of this started? Let's not forget about all of these wonderful celebrities that helped to bail out all of these criminals to put them right back on the street to cause more destruction. We continue taking knees and bowing to tyranny. You can bet this is only going to get worse. It'll never improve. This is a daunting picture, but it's a picture of our future to come. Now have Congress admitting that police opened the doors to the Capitol, and the people that attended, well, they're still in jail for just attending. All those same immigrants that helped burn our cities down have now completely destroyed France. 1 John 3:3-5, everyone who has this hope in him purifies himself just as he is pure. Everyone practicing sin also practices lawlessness. Indeed, sin is lawlessness. You know that Yeshua appeared in order to take away sins, and in him there is no sin. Again, our Messiah warned that many anti-messiahs have already come, and you're looking at one right now. In a 2009 TED Talk, we see Bill Gates releasing mosquitoes in a conference. Matthew 24:7, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. Bill Gates reveals why this factory is breeding 30 million mosquitoes every week. Somebody please explain to me why every time this man speaks something bad happens. Brazil will release billions of lab-grown mosquitoes to combat infectious disease. Will it work? This man has a lot of unhealthy connections, and on top of that, he announces $168 million to develop next generation of malaria vaccine. 5 cases of malaria discovered in the US. Thereafter, malaria cases in Texas and in Florida are the first in the US spread since 2003, says CDC. You think this is a coincidence? Because Bill Gates is the one that released them. Nothing to worry about. You can trust him. Vaccines, mosquitoes, farmland, one of the richest that owns most of the land. Fentanyl crisis. I pray my people are following along with everything that we're piecing together here, because this is not by coincidence that our streets are being flooded with illegal drugs, that these disasters are taking place everywhere, and that things are progressively getting worse in every single state in America. Why people in chronic pain are struggling just to get their hands on prescription medication. Our streets are inundated and flooded with illegal drugs while our government does nothing. Revelation 18:23, the light of a lamp will never shine in you again. The voice of the bridegroom and the bride will never be heard in you again. Your merchants were the world's important people. By your magic spell, all the nations were led astray. This isn't just speaking of magic, people. This is talking about pharmakia, sorcery. Why fentanyl continues to cross the border. Our New York governors and mayors are making vending machines with free crack pipes and free Narcan and anything you might need to get high, while our vets suffer on the street and can get no help. And these drugs are making people turn into zombies. They stay hunched over all day long in the same position until they can get their next fix. Where is our government? The worst part is they're blaming these fentanyl deaths on prescription drugs and making people suffer who are in pain. Drug shortages on cancer treatments, antibiotics, cold medicines, chemotherapy drugs, pain medications, Adderall, you name it, there's a shortage on nearly everything, and they're blaming it all on fentanyl. How do you collapse a society? You open their borders, you take away much needed drugs, you bring in illegal drugs, you start natural disasters, you start threatening people's money. There's a lot of things that are taking place that people are just not putting together. But I can assure you this, America is being taken down from the inside. 530,000 migrants illegally sneak across the border since October. And guess what Governor Abbott is doing? He's shipping them by the busloads into our inner cities. And then they're taking our hard-earned tax money and they're housing them in some of the nicest hotels. And look at how they're being left. And I'm sure many of you have noticed that these are mostly all males that are fully healthy with cell phones and clothes and food. Lamentations 2:7. And Yahweh rejected his altar, despising his sanctuary. He delivered the walls of her cities and her citadels into the hand of the enemy. They raised a shout in the house of Adonai as if it were the day of Moed. But all the while our country falls apart, our president wants to send $37 billion more to Ukraine in emergency aid after already sending $75 billion. And while the media kept everybody busy with this submarine that disappeared for days, nobody was even paying attention to the fact that there was a deal being made with Zelensky and BlackRock. BlackRock is the new owner of Ukraine. And if everything I've already told you isn't disheartening enough, now they're warning us of cyber attacks on our power grid in the hottest possible time ever recorded in history. While we face potential blackouts, Elon Musk has saved Australia's power grid. Why can't that be done here in the US? I'll tell you why. Because they no longer have interest in the US or the citizens. If we're under a power grid strain, let's add more strain to it by adding more things that we have to plug into the grid. Makes a whole lot of sense. Get rid of fossil fuels that have worked for ages, which we have an endless supply of, and let's start doing what Africa's doing in load shedding. Extreme heat means 2/3 of North America could suffer blackouts this summer. All by design. Some of the hottest days on record. Record-breaking heat waves sprawl across the US. All-time record of 122 degrees Fahrenheit on June 26 of 1990. We've been breaking those records. And climate is everything, according to Time magazine. Revelation 8:11. The name of the star was Wormwood, and 1/3 of the waters turned bitter, and many people died from the waters that had become bitter. In the midst of everything else that's going on, even our air quality is being ruined, and eventually that will seep into our water. As you can see, anything on the air quality index above 200 or even 101 is considered very unhealthy. Late Tuesday night in New York, it was above 218. What could possibly fix all of these things that are happening? Well, climate lockdowns, just like they told us in the beginning of the COVID lockdowns. As spoken before, we have had record-breaking heat. People all around the US have been without power. People have died from the heat. And people are wondering why things are getting hotter. Well, did we forget that China launched its own nuclear sun? And is everyone forgetting that they're seeing 2 suns in the sky? And does Scripture not say that in the end times, people will not be able to tread on the earth by way of the heat? This has nothing to do with Nibiru or another planet, and everything to do with the works of man and evil. Can the U.S. stop inflation? Seems like they're spending money left and right and sending it everywhere except for where it needs to be, which is here in the United States, with the people that have paid taxes and worked their entire lives for their retirement and their 401ks. So what do the elites plan on doing? Well, welcome to FedNow, where every transaction you make will be run through. And if you're not abiding by their rules, well, they can cut your money supply off in a heartbeat. Not to mention they want to get everybody used to universal basic income, where you'll have nothing and be happy. So how do they plan on getting rid of the dollar? Reverse ATMs. Welcome to the beast system, where everything will be done just like China, and you will now be a slave even more. They know it and have no problem telling it to your face. We all knew this was coming, and we all have a choice whether or not we want to be part of this beast system. But the elites, they don't care if you choose to opt out. Most of the world will be a part of it because they're going to want to survive. But once you become a part of it, there's no getting out of it. If you don't comply with what they want, they'll just replace you with more compliant machines, which has been their goal from day one. After all, if they're worried about population control, well, they have to have something to take care of the things that we do and have been taking care of. The man that everyone is so desperately waiting to swoop in and save them is the very man that helped push all of this forward. He made the implementation of 5G roll out much faster by signing that bill. Not only that, but they're hiding these towers. Why hide something? If it's something that's not harmful, why hide it and disguise it and make it look like it's part of nature? And the American people wonder why they're struggling to make ends meet. This is why. This is where all of your tax dollars are going. Not only that, but they're putting these on our drinking water. How good can 5G be on a tower full of water that's fed to the city? Not only that, they're putting them in crosses, they're putting them in the church cathedrals, they're putting them on top of every building in every major city that you go to, and it is not increasing our internet speed. If anything, our internet speeds have slowed down substantially. But the countries that have been catching on, they've been dealing with it in their own way. My only question is, if it's just a conspiracy, then why are people so up in arms about these things being up? And why are they burning them down to the ground? There have been plenty of people that have taken this to their local government, complaining about headaches, insomnia, changes in their mood, and there's even now medical studies coming out showing the negative effects on the human body and radiation coming from the devices that we use that are connected to these towers. There's also been numerous studies on charging stations, electric vehicles, and even wrapping your home to protect yourself from 5G radiation. There's been thermal scans done and plenty of doctors who have come forward wanting to speak truth, but they're always silenced. But we know why. It doesn't fit their agenda. It doesn't fit their plans for our future without them consulting us first. Why is it that we have these strange lights popping up everywhere, and the story that we've been fed is that they're factory defects and that they're supposedly going to be replaced? But I don't see how that would be possible, seeing how they're in every city and every state all over the country. Another question, why are all of our food plants catching on fire? Well, I have a hunch. The same reason why the guy who wants to buy up all the farmland thinks we need to switch to synthetic beef. Haven't you heard? Lab-grown beef is the new thing. Synthetic meats, 3D printed steaks, all made by cancer cells. So as they continue to print meat, our food processing plants will continue to burn down until there's nothing left except for lab-grown meats and the things that they think we should be eating. And while they're telling us to look over here to the left, over here on the right, over 30 tons of explosives have gone missing, and nobody has a clue would happen to them. And then strange things like this start to happen. All of this because a gas truck driver fell asleep. The guys pretending to be the good guys always show their hand at some point. Florida survives off of tourism, and what does our Governor DeSantis do? He completely destroys that. I'm all for people coming in by due process, but ending our economy, and then on top of that, arming all of our citizens. Either they're preparing us for what they know is coming, or they're gonna try to remove our rights. Either way, something just isn't right. Carrying a weapon is a great idea, but you also need the training that comes along with that. Just as our Messiah said in Matthew 24 that there would be wars and rumors of wars, well, we're seeing that happening. We're seeing entire countries rebel against their governments, and we're seeing the fall of some of these countries. Not to mention the growth of other countries and their military. I honestly believe that any of these billionaires care about any of us on the bottom. These people, again, only care about money and power, and they use the media to push their propaganda and fear, just like they do with movies. As China flaunts their military power, we're becoming just like them as far as being a police state. We'll soon have social credit scores, and we'll be under lock and key. Whatever the government says, goes. This is a satellite. They call it a weather balloon, but this is exactly how satellites are launched up into so-called orbit, when actually all they're doing is skimming along the surface of our firmament. We were told that it was sent over by China to do surveillance on America, but they're all working together. And how are we to know what was inside of that? The art of misdirection. While they're telling us to look one way, they're busy doing something on the opposite direction. We need to be prepared for what's coming, not because of what the media says, but because of what Scripture says. All of these things that are happening exactly according to prophecy. Just as in the days of Noah, they were genetically modifying human beings, and we were told by the Messiah that it would be no different upon his return. Super soldiers, genetically modified human beings, and not only that, we have man merging with machine. While all of America's weapons are being sent over to Ukraine, China continues to grow along with Russia. Not to mention, America is now doing exercises right here in our homeland. I think it's a fair assumption to make that everybody knows something's coming. Everybody can feel it. However, if you're a believer in the way, then you have nothing to be afraid of. You should be praying for the return of our Messiah and looking forward to all of this evil coming to an end. The United Nations is on the cusp of keeping Americans from stockpiling ammunition. They want to take away every right you have. They want to control what you eat, what you can say, but more importantly, none of this is up to them. Our rights were given to us by Yahweh, not the Constitution. Social credit scores, cameras mounted everywhere, palm prints, Fed now. It's all about control. And again, if you don't believe it's happening, you need to open your eyes right now, because soon you're going to have to make a very crucial decision on whether or not you're going to be a part of the beast system or you're going to opt out and stand for what's right. Remember that the angels that were bound for 70 generations are now loose, hence the reason we're seeing the spike in technology and why Satan is creating his own Lamb's Book of Life. This is how Satan will be able to be everywhere at once, trying to mimic Yahweh. With the advancement of technology, it's becoming very difficult to tell what's real and what's fake. They can take your face and put it on a video, and your voice, and you would never know. Even our Wi-Fi routers have now become sonar systems where they can 3D map your entire home and watch your every single move. Everybody loves the idea of Alexis being able to look up something for them, but what people don't realize is these doorbells, vacuum cleaners, all of these devices, they're all mapping out your home. They can listen in to your conversations, and then these things can be used against you in the court of law. So how did we get here? Well, every time you buy a new cell phone or a computer and you click agree to their terms, You're agreeing to a lot of things that you probably don't even realize. You're giving them permission by using their products. We are currently witnessing Satan building his army for the Battle of Armageddon. My best advice to you would be to stay as far away from these electronics as possible, because they're not doing you any favors. Everybody will believe what a scientist or a theologian has to say, but nobody wants to listen to what Yahweh says. Take a look at some of the key players. Follow the money. Look at the companies they own, and ask yourself, what are these companies for? What are their affiliations with the higher-ups? And what role are they playing in the end times? Artificial intelligence has become billions and billions of times smarter than human beings, and soon these machines, or Satan, will be making all the decisions for Americans and every nation on the planet. A wise man once said, "What has been is what will be, and what has been done will be done again, and there is nothing new under the sun." The one thing that King Solomon didn't take into account for is tribulation, which will be like no time that ever was before or ever will be again. Satan has thousands of different religions disguised all over the place. People believe that they're worshiping different gods, when really, they're just worshiping him. If people understood the rituals that were taking place all over, from Hollywood to the music industry, and right on our city streets, these places of worship are everywhere. And again, if you look at some of the logos that are on these companies, they're all owned by the same people, and they all lead back to the very same thing, the worship of Gadrael. World religion and beast system is already here. People are trying to deny it because people don't like to face what they're afraid of. But again, Yahweh did not create us with a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And Yeshua spoke the words, "Because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold." My trust will be kept in the Most High, and not a man. These men can keep their 15-minute cities and their flying cars, and all of their gender confusion. I want no part of that, and I will never bend the knee to evil. The time is fast approaching where the children of Israel will return back to the promised land to be hidden away. While the world falls apart, Yahweh will protect his people. But as you can see, the promised land is going through quite a bit of a change right now. So this is my plea for those of you that don't know Torah and don't know what the prophets speak of in these last days. I would get yourself very familiar with all of the prophecies that are being fulfilled right now as we speak. The river Euphrates is currently dried up, and that is a huge prophecy in our Bible. And you better understand what happens when it's fully dry. You're always going to have the doubting unbelievers saying, "The river Euphrates has dried up before." Well, really? Has the entire planet been in disarray like it is now before? I don't think so. Yeshua is returning, and soon. And my hope for everyone is that they're prepared when that takes place. Revelation 9:14, it said to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." Again, my brothers and sisters, familiarize yourself with Revelation chapter 6 and Matthew 24 and all of the prophets, because the time of the end is already here. Very devastating and powerful earthquakes are taking place all over the planet. You willing to bet your eternity that it's just a coincidence? Into the words of the Messiah, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All of these are just the beginning of birth pains. So for all of you that keep saying, "Oh, this has been happening," yes, you're right, and that's exactly why you should be paying attention. So as NASA and the intelligence agencies start to come forward and tell us that we're not alone and that there are aliens here, you need to understand something. Those fallen angels have always been here. The only difference is they're loose, and they're going to wreak havoc on this earth, just as prophesied. I cannot stress that enough. Prophecy, prophecy, prophecy. Those of you that are keeping the Torah and the testimony of our Messiah, We have a bright future ahead of us, and there's nothing but good things to look forward to. No more pain, no more suffering, and we will walk with our Messiah for 1,000 years, and then we will spend eternity with both our Messiah and our Father. Take heed, let no man deceive you, and those that endure to the end shall be saved. And you will be seated with the Messiah as he is seated in his Father's throne. This isn't just about confessing and believing. This is about living like the Messiah lived. Revelation 21, 1 through 4. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any more firmament. I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from Yahweh, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Look, Yahweh's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and Yahweh himself will be with them and be their Elohim. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old things have passed away. There are no pictures that can express the way that heaven will look here on the new earth. But one thing's for sure, the way that it's explained in Scripture is absolutely beautiful, and I long for the day. Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in Yahweh will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and not be faint. I understand pain and suffering more than most, and I know that there are people that have suffered way worse than myself, but I can tell you this, no one has ever suffered or endured what our Messiah did for us. So this is something that we can hope towards. This is something that we can put all of our faith in and know that if we're able to endure till the end, that we will be saved and that there will be no more pain and suffering, and we will live as the Messiah. The time our Messiah left heaven and was born here on the earth in the flesh, he suffered, he was persecuted, he was mocked, and even some of those that followed him didn't believe. What type of love is that? And how do we approach that? By keeping the Father's commandments and keeping the testimony of his Son Yeshua, which means if we say we believe, we should be walking just as he walked. Psalm 19:7. The law of Yahweh is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. I will never understand these people today that say that they know Yahweh, and yet they tell other believers that the law is not for us. Beautiful picture. Our Messiah came down and was baptized by John the Baptist, showing us how we could be made new and born again. Please listen to the words of the Messiah. Please follow in his footsteps. It is our job to show other believers what it looks like to fully believe in things that are to come, to have a hope and a faith and stand on the promises that Yahweh made to his people. It's impossible to have the Father's Spirit unless you have taken the proper steps, just as the Messiah showed us. I only believe in one hero who had flesh like us, and that's our Messiah. But I also don't place him above the Creator, Yahweh, our Father. Yeshua is our example, our brother. Everything that he did while he was here on the earth was beautiful. He showed us what it looked like to love one another. But when he comes back, if we're not following his testimony and the words of his Father, then there's no hope for us. If Yeshua kept the law, then we too have to keep the law. If Yeshua was baptized, then we too have to be baptized. Yahweh doesn't change, men do. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of Yahweh, so that things which are were not made of the things which do appear. By faith Abel offered unto Yahweh a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, Yahweh testifying of his gifts, and by it being dead yet speaketh. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found, because Yahweh had translated him. Before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased Yahweh. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Yahweh must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. We pray you were blessed by this presentation, and we'd like to thank all of our faithful supporters in helping us to continue to get out the word, the truth, the gospel.